Hi guys! Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be reading the one-shot In the End Will You Be Here by the Corvid Prince. Once again, I love this person's fics and it's been a while since I've read this one, so I just had a little skim through. It was really great. But here are some trigger warnings. Suicide. Suicide, because it's Dazai, you know. Anyway, I think that's it, but I'll leave any more trigger warnings down in the description. This is quite gay, so just a warning. And anyway, here is the description. Dazai, in the final moments of his life, after another attempt to end his life, calls Chuuya and asks his former partner to stay on the line until he passes. Chuuya obliges, of course, but with the goal of finding the man before it's too late. Along the way, the two men discuss the places where they shared a lot of memories over their shaky relationship. In the end, will Chuuya be fast enough to rescue or even see the man he loves before he dies? I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is really angsty. Be ready to cry because this is a good one. Gets you right in the feels. Anyway, don't be surprised if I start crying during this because this is a really emotional fic. I'll try not to, but you never know. Anyway, let's get right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. When Port Mafia executive Chuuya Nakahara got home from work, he frequently wanted to relax with a glass of wine and a good book. Since most days his organization's work happened during the night, the redhead man was usually able to fulfill his desires. He lived a peaceful life despite his occupation. Chuuya was more than a little proud of the bit of sincerity. He had been able to create for himself while away from the Port Mafia. And its varying attachments. Though some mornings, when Chuuya got home from whatever challenging and frequently bloody missions the boss had sent him on, there would be things or people to distract him from the calm atmosphere that he desired after a long workday. It was usually trivial stuff, a subordinate running into problems with paperwork, or one of the many members of the Port Mafia that trusted him asking for advice with some more personal matters in their life. Chuuya never minded helping out the people when people needed him. His general aura of kindness and willingness to do what was required kept most people out of harm's way, and a large portion of the reason so many people in the Mafia admired him. Although the reason throughout all his varying tales that were thrown his way, the red-haired man executive never expected to receive a call from his ex-partner, Osami Dazai. He could hardly believe his eyes when the phone screen lit up with the contact name, Shitty Mackerel, Dazai. It had been years since the bastard had called him, even when they were actively working together. Dazai didn't often call Chuuya, so why is he calling now? Was it a call that Chuuya should answer? The executive stares at the phone momentarily, just thinking about what he should do. After considering for a few more moments, he sighs and answers the call. What harm could be done in a simple little phone call with Dazai? The man who had forced him into the Port Mafia relentlessly teased him. Was the only person he could trust, no matter the circumstances, and abandoned him without a word. What was there to say about a man like that? Dazai, Chuuya says bluntly as he answers the phone, sounding like he does not want to be interrupted from his usual day of relaxing. Is that you, Chuuya? Dazai asks on the other end of the line. The man's voice sounds a lot softer and much weaker than the heartless man Chuuya once knew to be in the Port Mafia, a Port Mafia executive. Even in their 7 years of knowing each other, the red-haired man had never heard Dazai this utterly spent and exhausted. What had happened to him? Yes, it's me, Shitty Mackerel. Chuuya hisses into the phone. I think you'll know I think you knew that when you decided to call me out of the fucking blue. Despite his harsh and blunt words, he sounds concerned. It was obvious that Dazai was in a much worse state than he had ever heard him in before. While he would never admit it, he was worried for his ex-partner. To prove this point, Chuuya takes a deep sigh and grabs his temples, in disbelief of what he was about to ask. Are you alright? He asks, sounding much more caring than usual. You sound exhausted and your voice is weak. Dazai only hums in amusement on the other end of the line. Is my little chibi worried about me? Even the light-hearted teasing of the man sounds forced through a very wary voice. Can't a guy call his ex-partner because he's bored? Dazai's exhausted voice continues. Chuuya immediately flushes, turning bright red as he heard Dazai refer to him as his little chibi. Hey, don't call me that, he bursts out, hardly hiding his obvious embarrassment with the nickname. Despite sounding embarrassed by the term, he was still just as concerned with how Dazai was doing right now as he was before he started teasing. He might even be slightly more concerned than before, as the other man always seemed to cope with the worst situations with humour instead of taking them seriously. It was a trope that annoyed Chuuya to no end when they were in the porn mafia together. I'm serious, the executive exclaims when he could control himself from shouting at his ex-partner. You sound weak and exhausted. What happened to you? Dazai lets out a heavy sigh on the other end of the phone. I could never hide anything from you for long, could I? He says with a chuckle in his voice. Fine, I called you because I didn't want to die alone, and you're the first one that came to mind. It's kinda stupid, I know. Chuuya freezes at the moment Dazai speaks again. Despite the previous teasing and argument, his mind was racing with connotations of what the man had just said. It feels like a cruel joke that Chuuya would be forced to listen to his ex-partner take his final breaths. Dazai had never been known to express so much emotion in his voice, but now was an exception. Even through the phone, Chuuya could tell Dazai was being serious for once in what he had just said. What the hell do you mean you don't want to die alone? Chuuya demands, trying to hide as much of his worry as possible. What the fuck happened to you? Well, Dazai's weak voice responded, let's just say I finally discovered the right amount of sleeping pills to give me the desired effect, the result I've desired my whole life. Chuuya had never heard so much joy in the other man's voice. It was utterly depressing how excited Dazai seemed about the prospect of finally being able to die. Every nerve in the executive's body was begging for him to sprint down to the rundown apartment of the armed detective agency that the armed detective agency had provided for Dazai and bring him to his senses, or at the very least ensure the man didn't die entirely alone. So he does. Chuuya's emotions are at an all-time high, his brain working and racing to try to talk Dazai out of whatever will happen. The fact that he hears the man so excited about his own death worries the executive even more. He starts heading to Dazai's apartment as fast as possible to stop the man from doing anything drastic before he even responds to his former partner's words. Dazai, wait! Chuuya yells, a bit too emotionally, as he races through the streets of Yokohama to the armed detective agency. Don't do anything dramatic. I'm coming over to stop you from doing anything stupid. The other man laughs on the other side of the line. Good luck with that, Chuuya. As Chuuya arrives at the apartment, not hesitating to break down the door, there was no sign of his former partner in the cramped apartment. None whatsoever. It was like Dazai never lived in it. Let's talk about our past while we wait for the side effects to kick in, shall we? Dazai says, sounding sounding more peaceful than usual. Since you're in my apartment right now, let's start with our first mission. When the armed detective agency came to its permanent truce. How was it like working beside me after 4 years? There was a hint of amusement in the other man's voice, as if he was amused by making Chuuya reminisce, when there was no sign that he had gone to his end. There was a hint of humour in the other man's voice, as if he was amused or making Chuuya reminisce, when there was no sign to where he could end his life. Dazai, this isn't funny, the executive shouts loud enough to practically wake up Dazai's neighbours. He was now frantically running around the apartment, looking for any sign of his ex-partner. When he can't find anything and hears Dazai's voice asking about their past, Chuuya has to calm himself down to take a moment to speak again. If his partner insisted on discussing the past while he wanted to die, the executive had no choice but to indulge him. But he would not stop looking for Dazai where Dazai was either. Working with you after 4 years was interesting, he began. You were less of a headache this time, which was a nice change of pace. And you were more cooperative than in the first few years. Why are we talking about this? I'm glad you found yourself more willing to be by my side than last time. Chuuya could practically hear the smile on Dazai's face through the phone. You know, I spent most of the time together to annoy you because I thought the facial expressions were angry. You know, I spent most of the time when we were together annoying you because I found your facial expressions were cute when you were angry. There was a clear line of sight. It was one clear side effect of the sleeping pills Dazai had ingested, and it was loosening the man's lips so he can confess some of the most deeply hidden secrets. Fighting the guild was fun because you were beside me, Chuuya's ex-partner whispers happily into the phone. A very light blush appears on Chuuya's face as he hears how Dazai spent most of the time working together alongside one another. His cheeks heat up significantly when he hears how cute Dazai thought he looked when he was angry. It was clear that Dazai was being affected by the sleeping pills he had took, because there was no way the man would ever confess his true feelings about him when he was sober. Yeah, I always liked working with you, even when you tried to get on my nerves. His voice trembled slightly. It seemed more than a little unbelievable that this could be the last time that he was able to speak with the man that meant so much to him. Chuuya was not going to let Dazai die like this, although not when he had so many things to answer for. He had to keep Dazai on the phone long enough to get another location of what they meant to him, what that had meanings to them. Why don't you tell us more about our fights? The executive asks as he leaves Dazai's armed detective agency apartment, heading towards the harbour of the abandoned shipping where an abandoned shipping container lies. Dazai laughs on the other end of the line. You really want to hear more about how cute you were yelling at me? Yeah, especially when you English. Especially when you seem to like that you always seem to like when we would argue, especially when I told you to go. And Chuuya pauses momentarily to think about the various insults at his ex-partner. You know what? Never mind. He pauses again and sighs. He then said something he never thought he would hear anyone say. He would never say to anyone under the influences of a couple glasses of wine. Dazai, I miss you. I miss those times we were arguing. no matter how annoying you are. Chuuya arrives at the shipping container only a few moments later, and his heart drops when he realizes that his idiotic partner isn't there. Though he supposes this isn't that surprising, as he wasn't in the shipping container. Thanks, English. From what the executive knew, Dazai hadn't returned to the place he lived most of the time in the Port Mafia ever. It was a shot in the dark from the executive that the former executive would have returned here to kill himself, but Chuuya would not have forgiven himself if he at least didn't check. He was still catching his breath when Dazai speaks up again. Dazai's voice was raspy, nearly silent. You miss me? Chuuya stays silent for a few moments, processing those words before continuing and answering the question. Yeah, I do. I miss you, Dazai. He is stunned when he hears himself say that. He never would have imagined that he would admit such a thing to the man he used to get on his nerves all the time, but here he is doing it. He can't even bring himself to smile at the revelation because of the situation of Dazai dying on the other end of the line. That's nice to hear, Chuuya, Dazai sighs. I think about it as I die. I'll think about it as I die, I think. The other man coughs a few times before speaking to Chuuya again. Where did you go to find me this time? I hear you're out of breath. Shit, how had the Superman figured that out? The shipping container, Chuuya admits. Dazai slightly laughs on the other end of the line. That certainly is one place to check, he teases the red-headed man. But it's much too depressing for me to kill myself there. Before Chuuya can respond, Dazai has more to say. To entertain me in my final minutes, or hours, why don't you try to find me, he asks. Anytime you're wrong, we can talk about the memories at each location. And if you're right, well, I suppose you have the chance to save me, Chibi. What do you say? I say you're an idiot. Chuuya lets out a groan of frustration at Dazai's suggestion. He can tell that his ex-partner was trying to determine how much the man cares for him. But Chuuya doesn't care about any of that right now. He just wants to find Dazai. Fine, I'll do it. I'll play a stupid game, he sighs. Just don't die before I find you, okay? An exhausted sigh comes from Dazai. I can't make any promises, but I'll try to hold on just a little longer, he whispers. Just for you. The following location, meaningful enough to him and Dazai that Chuuya arrives at the park at the center of the bustling streets of Yokohama. The park itself wasn't unique or specifically beautiful, but it did mean a lot to Chuuya. Somewhere in the park, underneath one cherry blossom tree, there was the site of his first kiss with Dazai. So, the other man's voice says from the other end of the line, Where have you ended up now, Chibi? Chuuya stares around the park, recognizing the area where he and Dazai shared their first kiss. He remembers clearly every single detail of the place. It was the day they both admitted to it that they liked each other. They both admitted how they felt about one another. And yet, despite how much this place meant to him, the memories he shared with Dazai here, he couldn't find his ex-partner anywhere. He sighs in defeat as he realizes he has gone to yet another location without any sign of his ex-partner anywhere. It worries him to no end that Dazai is dying somewhere in the city and refuses to tell him where he is. But Chuuya decides to focus on the question the other man had asked him. Dazai, I think I'm at the park. The one where we kiss under the cherry blossom tree? Dazai sounds like he's remembering the memory himself. Our first kiss. Do you remember how it happened? Or must I remind you? Chuuya blushes even thinking about the memory. I think I remember. It all happened so quickly, I couldn't process what was going on. I turned around, you pinned me against a tree. I remember looking into your eyes and shouting at you before you. The executive's face was bright red now, as he was unsure what to say next. His mind was racing so fast that he can't even find the right words to describe the beautiful moment. His emotions are all muddled together from the adrenaline, the excitement, his current fear of losing Dazai, and more. I like to think I was able to surprise you with that first kiss, Dazai hums in satisfaction. I'll never forget the way you bit my lip and then used my pain to pin me against the wall and make out with me. You always liked taking charge in our relationship, didn't you? For the first time since Chuuya received the phone call from his ex-partner, he heard a little energy in the other man's voice. Chuuya chuckles at the remark. Of course, he did like taking charge of their relationship, even if he wouldn't admit it. I did. It was fun taking charge, especially with you. The executive grins as he remembers that day when he finally manages to kiss the man of his dreams. The kiss that became one of his biggest life moments. I think you liked it too, didn't you? Your actions told me that much. I can't tell you that, Chuuya, Dazai replies. Chuuya can tell that he's smiling on the other end of the line. If you want to know what I think you're thinking of taking charge, you're going to have to go to another location, aren't you? It doesn't take long for Chuuya to understand precisely where Dazai is hoping to lead him. A few minutes later, he's at a small bustling apartment of his ex-partner, where he and his ex-partner cohabitated for most of their official relationship in the last year and a half of the taller man's time in the Port Mafia. The location held many memories of Chuuya and Dazai's relationship. The executive knows that Dazai had coaxed him here to talk about their first time. Unfortunately, by coming to the apartment that held so many memories for him and Dazai, Chuuya also found another place where his suicidal partner was not. Are you there yet? Dazai's exhausted voice asks right as the red-haired man realizes that when he has gone to another Dazai-less location. Want to talk about all the fun we had in this apartment? I'm here. Chuuya is trying to keep his emotions as contained as possible right now. He is already starting to break down, and the fact that a large majority of the locations that held meaning to him and Dazai turned out to be a wild goose chase was driving him crazier. He had been in the apartment only for a few moments now, yet he'd feel like he had been there for ages. I can't find you here either. Of course not, I'm not there, Chuuya, Dazai whispers into the phone. Why would I tell you exactly where I am when I'm trying to die? I just want to reminisce on the good times we had while I wait to die. The other man coughs a few more times before he speaks again. Now, he had that teasing voice in his tone again. We're going to talk about how much you enjoy being in control, aren't we? There's no better place than this one for that to be proven true, right? Chuuya's face has gotten redder at the mention of him enjoying being in control of their relationship. He enjoyed being in control, mainly because he could take care of Dazai in a way that he couldn't do at other points. Right, the apartment. He pauses momentarily. You enjoyed that too, didn't you? Dazai laughs. Didn't I tell you how much I was enjoying myself when it was actively happening? He teases. I remember how many times you told me to be quieter about how much I enjoyed what we were doing. Chuuya chuckles at the memory of all the noise he had to stifle from Dazai over the time they had lived in the thin-walled apartment. I did. I tried to ignore the sounds you made, or the sounds you tried to stifle. I knew that you enjoyed yourself, to be honest. Chuuya sighs, Chuuya then sighs. Man, how could I have forgotten what I had enjoyed the most about you? Chuuya Nakahara, Dazai exclaims, sounding slightly offended. Are you saying my favorite feature of yours is my ass? No, well, yes, but that's not what I meant. The redhead man panics. Did he say that out loud? No. Oh no, that's definitely not what he meant. He tries to come up with a lie to cover his mistake, but he can't think of anything. He trails off. Well, Fine, you got me. Chuuya sighs in defeat. Your ass is one of my favourite features about you. Dazai laughs again, sounding less like he was close to death. I wish we had enough time to explore all your favourite features about me, but unfortunately, your time is short if you want to find me alive, so you're gonna have to keep going if you want any hopes of seeing me. Chuuya is motivated by the imminent threat of Dazai's death. He speeds out the apartment and lets his feet carry him to another place he thinks would be significant to him and his ex-partner. When he finally stops to take a breath, he cannot help but notice he's in front of a grave with a familiar name carved into the marble stone. It was the final resting place of the only other man besides Chuuya that Dazai cared about, Oda Sakunosuke. The man whose death caused Dazai to leave the Port Mafia and Chuuya behind in hopes of finding the light. Where did you go this time, Chuuya? Dazai asks. I don't see you. The other man sighs sadly. I hoped that maybe I would find those pretty blue eyes of yours before I died. Chuuya is in some sort of haze as he looks over the grave before him. A pang of guilt and sadness runs through his heart as he thinks of Oda and what he meant to Dazai. He didn't respond to Dazai's question immediately, but he finally gave a response in a whisper. Oda's grave. His voice cracks through the mixture of emotions he had been feeling. A decent place to try to find me, Dazai whispers, but you're wrong yet again, unfortunately. The other man sighs sadly, hoping Chuuya would have found him by now. Do you want to know why I left the Port Mafia after he died? Dazai asks suddenly. I do. Chuuya pauses for a few moments before he continues to speak. It hurt his heart to remember everything about the incident with Oda, and he is unsure if he wants to answer the question properly. If I understand correctly, what drove you to leave the Port Mafia that incident drove you to leave the Port Mafia and seek out the light that you had always hoped you would find for yourself. You're almost fully correct, dear Chuuya, Dazai replies. Yes, I left because Odasaku hoped I could find a better place to live and work for, but that's not the only reason. The other man trails off for a moment before speaking. Do you want to know the part of why I had to leave the Port Mafia? Yes. The single word answers Dazai's question. And she seems to listen carefully to everything the other man says. Finally, after 4 years of wondering why his former partner had left without a word, would the redhead man finally get the answer he hoped for? Anything that could justify what Dazai had done back then? Please tell me. I want to know. I didn't want the boss to use you against me, Chuuya. Dazai confesses. You're the only person I've ever loved. I don't want him to use that against us. I wanted to tell you that I was leaving, but I couldn't risk you getting caught up in my problems. Then, a little quieter, Dazai adds more. A part of me wished that to have asked you to follow me into the armed detective agency. The other man sighs. Would you have come with me if I asked? Chuuya lets out a small gasp at Dazai's confession. He didn't expect the other man to tell him any of this. He always assumed that Dazai never told him why he left the Port Mafia at the time because he didn't care about Chuuya. To hear the opposite was equal parts devastating and invigorating. The executive feels like he has been punched in the heart with what Dazai had said. They were both in love with each other, yet Dazai never told him, nor did he ask him to leave with him. Yes, Chuuya says without hesitation. If he was given the chance, he would leave the Port Mafia with Dazai no matter what. I would have followed you anywhere. I would have joined you in your search for the light, if that meant you wouldn't leave me behind. The executive chokes back tears as he opens his mouth to say one last thing. If you asked me to come with you at the time, I would have said yes in an instant. I didn't think that you would care enough to have me. I didn't think you would care enough to want me in your life and by your side. Chuuya can hear his former partner crying on the other end of the line. I'm so sorry. Dazai chokes out during agonizing sobs. I'm sorry I made you feel like I didn't care about you. The red-haired man was just about to open his mouth and respond when the other man on the other end of the line has more to say. I don't want to die alone, Dazai chokes. I'm where we first met. Please come find me. Chuuya had never run to the Yokohama slums faster in his life. The adrenaline in his veins being the only thing keeping him going, stopping him from breaking down and crying on the pavement because the man he loves was mere minutes away from dying. And then he sees Dazai. The man is lying in the middle of an empty street, still smiling into the phone, but waiting for Chuuya to approach him. Dazai? The shorter man asks as he nears his former partner. Dazai turns to his side, smiling at the red-haired man. I hoped you would make it in time, he whispers, beckoning Chuuya closer. Only when the red-haired man was on the ground in front of him does Dazai do anything else. He moves his head onto Chuuya's lap and smiles up at him. I'm glad I get to see an angel before I die, he says as he beams. Shut up, Chuuya replies desperately as he desperately tries to hold back the tears bubbling in his eyes. You and I both know I'm not an angel. You're close enough to an angel to me, Dazai says, weaker than ever, as he closes his eyes in his partner's lap. Not much longer. Those 3 words chill Chuuya's blood in his veins. Realistically, he knew he would be too late to do anything to save him by the time he found the other man, but it still hurt to see proof of it. He wanted to say so many things to Dazai at that moment, so many unsaid confessions and realizations from over the 7 years, but nothing comes out when he tries to say any of the thoughts in his head. He's completely stunned to silence by the sheer shock of the situation. Dazai? He shakes his head as he cradles the other man's head, trying to get Dazai to open his eyes again. Chuuya never thought he would miss the shine of those deep hickory eyes. So even when Dazai's eyes open again, the executive firmly believes that he's having an out-of-body experience. I love you, Chuuya, Dazai says, his voice extremely hoarse and hardly audible. I'm sorry I couldn't stay with you for longer. The brown-haired man closes his eyes again, and Chuuya tries to slap him awake, though this time nothing wakes him. Dazai's dead. And more than that, he has fulfilled his promise to Chuuya to wait until he arrived to slip away. Oh god, that was angsty. I absolutely loved it though. So angsty, so amazing. Please give the Corvid Prince your love in the comments, because I'm still literally crying. I cried at the last few sentences of that. Yes, my voice was cracking, and yes, all that was genuine emotion, because gosh, this fic is good. Please go in the comments, go in the description, find the Corvid Prince, and please leave kudos and love on this fic, because I love it to bits, and I'm still literally crying, so I have to stay in here for a few more minutes after finishing this, so I don't look like a crying mess when I go out to my family. Anyway, take care of yourself, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!